Now this video is going to be kind of short and sweet, but it's still going to get me under a lot of fire, I just know it. Now, I'm also a hardcore video game nerd, and I was once a hardcore video game nerd virgin. But either way, I know you guys have to lambaste me for my gameplay or my opinions. I get it, it's cool. Do it to impress your friends, your girlfriends. You don't have one, that makes sense. I just want you guys to hear my opinion on this, because I run an opinionated channel that occasionally does something actually entertaining, and once in a blue moon when that happens, I get 800,000 views and don't know what to do with them. Anyway, my hair is kind of falling into my eyes, so let's roll on this gameplay commentary. You haven't seen enough of these, you have to see this. There's audio and there's game, you gotta see it. Okay, Titanfall was supposed to kill Call of Duty once, so surely Titanfall 2 would have done it twice as well. Unfortunately, not, and just by playing this one match today, I kind of realized why. Because Titanfall was in direct competition with two different shooters that it was kind of balancing its gameplay in between. You have the more large-scale battle feel of Battlefield, and you have the more closed-in Twitch shooter feel of Call of Duty. It can't lose, right? But unfortunately it did, and I think for a damn good reason. Now, a lot of people like to blame the lack of success with Titanfall 2 on its launch date, but after a while, you really can't blame the launch date anymore, can ya? Think about it, this game had raving reviews, it was constantly going on sale, EA was basically paying you to play it, but nobody really stuck around. Now I have to admit, its player base right now seems a little bit better than its player base several months ago. Several months ago I was picking on it because I saw a peak player base of around 200 at one point, and the highest was around 800 to 1,000. Really hitting the high notes there. And imagine everybody's surprise when Infinite Warfare's trailer received dislikes on YouTube and still for some reason had a bigger player base. Wow, what a wacky turn of events. The larger player base right now, around 4,000, can probably be attributed to the fact that the game went on sale like 20 times over the last 2 years, down to like $6. I've even seen it paired with Battlefield 1 for like 12 bucks. It's kind of the sad and defeated bundle, because I thought Battlefield 1 was supposed to crush Call of Duty, and I thought Titanfall was supposed to kill Call of Duty all the way back in 2013, but never happened. And I think some of the reasons this game didn't get critiqued is because, well, Infinite Warfare was being lambasted for merely existing, and Battlefield 1 was having its dick sucked for merely getting up in the morning, and I was busy trying to think of why Titanfall 2 should have my playtime. Now granted, I love this game. Now you might think I'm being a little bit negative, a little bit no, I like the game. It's a fun game. I like the campaign, I like the multiplayer, I like the horde defense mode. I think this game is what we call good. Now, a lot of people are still butthurt over the fact that this game released around two titans of industry, Battlefield and Call of Duty. In fact, it released around 2 Call of Duties and 1 highly anticipated Battlefield game. But like I said, you have to stop blaming that sun time. I mean, don't you want to scratch your head a little bit? Don't you want to think, hey, wait, maybe there's a reason people stopped playing it? And in my opinion, it comes down to a couple of things. One, on console, the controls just aren't very tight. I mean, I don't think it's unplayable or uncontrollable, but after playing a lot of Black Ops 4, Titanfall 2 feels like a massive downgrade in the Rudy Tooty point and shooty department. I just have to say it. It feels more floaty, it feels less stiff, and when you go to change your settings, you are just overwhelmed with just a ton of settings for your controller. And nobody needs as many settings as this game has, and no matter what you do to the settings, it just never feels quite right. I genuinely think the game would have been a lot better if it just mimicked Call of Duty's control scheme like exactly. I mean, button mappings for different things will be a little bit different, but the way the analog sticks feel, just copy straight from COD. There's a reason people like playing Call of Duty. It's tight, it's intuitive, and it feels good in your hands. In comparison, Titanfall 2 kind of feels like moving a golf ball around with a leaf blower. I mean, in comparison, it's not that bad, but it just, ugh. Another thing that Call of Duty and Battlefield do way better is, well, they're made to be the kind of games they are. And what I mean by that is, like, Battlefield nails large maps and Call of Duty nails small arena-based maps, whereas Titanfall 2 has places. It doesn't really have maps, okay? It has places. They never really seemed well designed to me. They never seemed to have a sort of flow or frame or anything I can predict on them. They always just felt like a place. The maps are clearly based around movement with your wall running, your double jumping, your Titan, and your grappling hook, and that's okay, that's all fine and good, but it feels like the game is constantly trying to lead you somewhere and you never get there. You know, it's like, it'd be really fun if things would line up and I could have some really cool trailer-worthy moments, but nothing ever happens. In fact, most of my experience with Titanfall 2 is going around the map, trying to be as fast and as hard to hit as possible, coming across somebody, having a reactionary gunfight with them, hopefully getting out alive, and then moving on. And it just is a direct contrast to the map control style of play from Call of Duty, or the large attrition style play from Battlefield. Oh, and part of the reason I only have one match of gameplay going on in the background is that it took about 7 minutes to find this match, and I wasn't about to go look at other game modes. I wanted to play some attrition for some actual good Titan on Titan combat, but oh well, that didn't work. And the fact is, a lot of the things I heard about Titanfall 2 is that people wanted to play the multiplayer, but they weren't into Titans, and then they were told to play pilot versus pilot, and upon doing that, I'm sure a lot of people noticed, wow, Call of Duty does this a lot better. Here's the thing, Titanfall 2 either feels like a large-scale battle with half the action, or it feels like a Twitch shooter without the frame. And you really can't have a fast-paced Twitch shooter without some sort of frame around it. When the maps just kind of feel big and open and enemies are just everywhere and anywhere, it doesn't feel as good. Now, I've had some great moments in Titanfall 2, and I've had a lot of fun in Titanfall 2, mostly in its campaign, but its multiplayer has given me some good moments. But unfortunately, hopping back into this game today, I just couldn't get into it at all. It just felt so sad and empty and vapid, and the fact that it just barely has more players than Halo Reach on a weekday is kinda depressing. Clearly something turned people off to the game. You can't blame its release date if after, again, positive review after positive review, everyone shitting on COD and telling everyone that Titanfall 2 is like the next Modern Warfare 2, it is just as good as any of the shooters you played in the last 10 years, but better. And they're being told all of this, the game's constantly going on sale and it's just not garnering players. So I'm guessing it didn't sell terribly. I'm guessing a lot of people bought it on sale and a lot of people bought into the hype, but the player base isn't there to show it. I think it'd be wonderful if Titanfall 2 became free with gold on Xbox and free with PlayStation Plus on PlayStation. The game deserves a player base, it's fun, but it clearly lacked in the two things that it was trying to do. It wasn't a good large-scale combat game, it wasn't a great Twitch shooter, and it was a pretty good mech-on-mech combat game, unless you were unlucky enough to have to fight two Titans by yourself, and if you're not the right Titan, and you don't have any team support, to a lot of people is very frustrating. Like, the game kind of goes from numbskull, shooty-tooty, whatever, to like a chess game. And when it becomes a chess game, I bet a lot of people were just like, fuck this, I'm not good enough for the Titans, I'm gonna play pilot versus pilot. Oh, this isn't as good as Call of Duty. How unfortunate. And the last nail in the coffin for this game was its lack of post-launch content. I was so excited to hear that this game didn't have a season pass, and I was so let down by the fact that it went the way of Battlefield 1 and Battlefront 2. Not enough, or too little too late, and it just didn't help. If this game was getting new guns, and new rigs you could use, new abilities and equipment, if this game was getting new Titans, it would be more fun, but it just didn't. I mean, it got some new stuff, I'm not saying it didn't get anything, but it clearly didn't get enough. And for that, I'm going to blame EA and not Respawn. The design of the game and how it plays, I do think put people off more than anybody wants to admit, but clearly there was a problem with post-launch content, and it clearly didn't make enough at launch in order to justify massive DLCs and weapon drops. And the last nail in the coffin, on top of the other one, is probably the fact that the Frontier Defense mode did more harm than good. As much as I love it, it just divided the player base more. Now the player base had to decide between campaign, multiplayer, and a third mode, instead of just campaign and multiplayer. So if you wanted to have some multiplayer fun with friends, you could just play Frontier Defense, and that would be it. In a way, that free update divided the player base more than any other paid $15 map pack would've, I think at least. I'm sure Titanfall 3 will be a lot better, but I also just kind of want them to drop the franchise. I mean, I don't really want to watch another Titanfall game lose its player base. I mean, if the first one didn't blow people away at the time, then how the hell is a third one going to? I mean, remember this, the first Titanfall launched alongside Call of Duty Ghosts. Call of Duty Ghosts, in comparison to Titanfall 1, looked like moldy cheese. Like, graphically and gameplay-wise was so dull and boring, whereas Titanfall was just a bunch of stuff we had never seen before. Like, We hadn't had a mech combat game in a long time, we didn't have wall running and all these advanced movement sci-fi shooters yet, and it just couldn't maintain a player base. There's a reason people play Battlefield and there's a reason people play Call of Duty, and I think the problem that Titanfall ran into was that nobody wanted to compromise on either of those experiences, no matter how fun your grappling hook was or how rewarding Titan combat was to learn. Overall, this is one of the best story shooters I've played in a long time. The story for this game is great and I highly recommend it. And again, I'm sorry my gameplay is bad, but I honestly don't care because there's not a reason for me to go get used to the way the guns feel and remember the meta and learn the movement over again. There's just no reason for me to. It's just not lively enough. So, yeah, this was kind of depressing. As I was talking, I thought it was going to be more entertaining than this, and now it's just like, hey, this game that I like doesn't have a player base, and that's just kind of a bitter shit to swallow. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you when I see you.